Namaskar and welcome. Swagatam to this session brought to you by Center for Soft Power of Indica. It's a series that we've been doing called The Travel of Ideas Across the Borders of India. We've had a session on Ayurveda, and then we've had one on Vedanta, and today the session is on music. So we will start with a small prayer. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvadha Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Ya Devi Stuyate Nityam Vibhudairveda Paragaihi Same Vasatu Jihvagre Brahma Rupa Saraswati Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Whenever I think of music or any Indian art, it always brings to my mind, what Swami Dayananda Saraswati said. He said that all activity is centered around the spiritual, the divine, and especially all our arts, be it performing arts, be it visual arts, be it any activity that we do. They're all centered around the spiritual, around, if we want to call it divinity, we can call it divinity, we can call it Krishna, Rama, Govinda, whatever we want to call that supreme universal being. So, in fact, I've had many discussions about this, and for us, very sound is called Nada Brahma. And we thought that understanding how this whole concept of music has traveled and how it is gelled with people from across the shores, we thought would be a very interesting program. And we have some very senior stalwarts that are connected to the world of music. And they have been really nice in accepting and spontaneously being here with us. So I'll hand it over now to Aparna so she can introduce these artists, and we'll continue with the session. Thank you and namaskar.
Namaskaram and welcome to this session on travel of ideas. Today is an auspicious day in India. It is the start of Gupta Navratri, and the goddess, of course, epitomizes everything that's creative and beautiful. A lot like our music. So we are very privileged today to have with us three wonderful artists who've shown us the way on how Indian music should be played, as well as the sadhana and the sampradaya should be nurtured and protected. We have with us Ken Zuckerman ji. He is a Grammy-nominated and international acclaimed as one of the finest sarod virtuosos performing today. And he's been called one of the world's most eclectic masters of improvisation. He has completed over 37 years of training under the rigorous discipline of India's legendary sarod master, Ustad Ali Akbar Khan. And you will hear more from him today about how he learned his music from his guru. We have a star amidst us today, and this year is especially very significant for Indian music, with us having India having featured in 5 Grammy Awards. Welcome to Sri Ganesh Rajagopalan ji, a very senior violin player. He and his Shakti band members won the Grammy for the best global music album with their studio album This Moment this year. Congratulations, sir, and welcome to this session. We have Dr. Suma Sudhindra ji, a very dear friend of the Center for Soft Power and a fellow Bangalorean. She is the foremost exponent of the Veena in her generation of musicians and a very rare blend of the classical conservative with a belief in evolving to the present. She has combined both the traditional as well as the modern sensibility in her music and has also shown us that how improvisation can help to create new music within the boundaries of our culture and tradition. Welcome to all of you and to our audiences, and looking forward to a lovely session. Sumaji, over to you.
Namaskar. I think Ganesh ji and Kenji can unmute yourselves and then be on the screen. Yeah. Welcome to this show.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Namaste, Sumaji. Namaste, everyone.
Namaste, Kenji.
Namaste.
If we can start with you, Ganesh.
Yeah.
You have lived in India for so long and performed. You started performing as a child prodigy and you've been performing. Now you're moved to Seattle. Now, how is that experience has been and how is the response for Carnatic music? Not among only our Indians, among the Americans.
Oh, yeah. Namaste and good evening to everyone. Good morning and to all the people in
Good
India.
evening to all of us.
Yeah, so I've been there in India for a long time and we have performed there, taught there. And it was like, hand of God which led me here because I used to come here for many workshops and concert tours and everything. And suddenly it so happened that there were a group of people from here, Northwest. They wanted me to come here because this Northwest I was visiting more often than other places in the US. And when I came here, and they wanted me to set up a school and take the music forward, and a lot of things came in together so very well that it was like I was moving from one neighborhood to the other in Chennai. It was not very difficult for me to uproot myself from Chennai to here. So it just happened. I thought there was some divine guidance for me, and that's why I came to Seattle. And I feel that it's my second home now. So that's how it. I mean, I can't put a reason why I came here, but it's all connected. Everything is fallen into place.
Do you teach only the Indian kids, or do you also get to teach some of the musicians from America? How does it work?
Yeah. It's the most beautiful thing is there is such an eclectic audience here in Seattle because there are few Americans, there are a lot of Indian kids, there are a lot of musicians coming here and learning. There's a lot of students and young adults, and like so many of them wanting to learn and imbibe the art. And you perform here, there is so much appreciation for Indian music because of its, and especially Carnatic music. Because one thing is, people have not heard so much of Carnatic music as much as Hindustani music in any part of the US. So for them to hear a Varnam or a Kriti or a Pallavi is quite different for them to for them to hear it. So we have to explain certain aspects of it, and because they are also like clothed in a lot of compositions. Our ragas are also clothed in a lot of compositions. We're able to present a variety of compositions and in different speeds, and so it's entertaining also for them. So I feel I'm blessed, actually blessed to be here, and being honored, and like
So this whole session, what we are doing is basically to find out, how much of Indian music has reached out to the other parts of the world. I've been traveling to America and to other parts from the 80s. Now it's 50 years since I've been traveling, doing all this. Initially, I used to play only for the Indian audiences, especially in America. It was very true, but in Europe, it's not the same. I just returned from a tour of Europe, and I find that, in fact, there was hardly 2 or 3 Indians in the whole performances I did for the 15 days. I did about 10 to 12 concerts. I hardly saw about maximum 10 Indians. So,
Wow.
Kenji, if I can ask you, how is it Indian music has taken, over in Europe? I see a lot of musicians coming to Bangalore, learning intricacies of Carnatic music. I've interacted with many of them. So what is your take on this?
Well, I've had a kind of a wild journey from several continents because I grew up in the U.S. and I had no interest, or let's say desire, to move to Europe or India. But as I grew up playing music, most Western music mostly on the guitar, I was my ears were ready for new sounds, and quite by surprise, I found myself in a concert of Ustad Ali Akbar Khan in the heartland of America, in Iowa,
Wow.
back in 1971, and I had never heard Indian music before that, and so when I heard this concert, I was deeply moved and touched and astonished that anyone could play an instrument with so much virtuosity that he demonstrated. And so after that concert, he mentioned that he had just recently opened up a school in California where anyone could study with him. And so I took the chance that summer, went out to California, started taking lessons, and then I was completely sold on learning Indian music. That's all I wanted to do. And somehow my parents convinced me to finish my bachelor degree so I would have something in my hands. But I just wanted to study Indian music, and did so for so many years. As it turned out, not always in California, because I was interested in also a kind of music from the West called medieval music, from the early European culture. And it led me to Switzerland for what I thought would be 1 year. And I got here, and after that 1 year, the conservatory where I was studying asked me to please stay another year, and they offered me a scholarship, so I couldn't refuse. And after the second year, they offered me a job to teach in this early music school. So I at that point I got a little bit bold, and I told them that I would love to do that, but I also played Indian music, and I wanted to be able to teach that also. And they said, "Well, yeah, okay, we'll give it a, maybe it's a good moment. We get 2 birds with 1 stone, And so I started there, and then I started bringing Ali Akbar Khan Sahab from California to Switzerland to give concerts, to give workshops. And then at one point in 1985, he suggested that I open a branch of the Ali Akbar College in Basel, Switzerland, and that's how it's gone up to now. And so I was able to maintain my work with him in California and in Switzerland, and whenever he went to India, I would be there with him. So it was a wonderful international approach to learning, and slowly but surely we built up quite a good audience for Indian music here in Basel and other places in Switzerland, and gradually over the years a very qualified base of students who are studying this music seriously. And most recently, due to the influx of Indians in Switzerland, some of the best students now are young Indian kids, starting when they're 8 years old, and it's really heartening after all these years to have such talented kids.
So when you teach, it's a lot of European musicians, when they come to you, do they want to learn Indian music to use a part of it, a concept of Indian music in their own music, or they're seriously into learning Hindustani music?
Yeah, both actually. Yeah, some of them, because I maintained courses, giving courses at the conservatory, so I was full of Western musicians, and they took these courses in Indian music to get another perspective and learn how compositions are made in another culture like India, and it was it was an eye opener for them, but they were still dedicated to continuing with their Western music. So they used these ideas. I think they became better musicians as a result of the ideas from Indian music. But they've gone on, playing their music mostly. But there were a few students who were so sold on the values of Indian music that they eventually traded in their guitars for a sarod or for a sitar, and I've had some of these students for over 20 years studying with me.
Wow.
Ganesh, what is your see? I see in Europe that there is a lot of interest among Western musicians to learn the rhythmic side of our music. They're very
That's
much
true.
interested in that. Maybe that's easier for them to understand. And a lot of them, when they came to India, because they've been coming to me in my institution and they keep learning with me, they didn't know that there was so much of see, as much rhythm is the big part of our music, melody is also a very, very big part of music.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I want to hear from Ganesh, what is his take on this?
Yeah, see the thing, yeah, definitely the rhythmic angle, because they feel that Carnatic music has actually got a very scientific base in talas. So all melody players, I see that they do special, they take special interest on percussion and rhythmic ideas, cycles, and all that. But there is a huge opening or huge interest when we play the raga system also, because I see some of my students, you'll be amazed to know this. Some of my students who also play in orchestras here, the conductor in the orchestra wants them to play Beethoven concert in the Carnatic way. Can you believe this? So there is so much interest for the gamakas, the patterns, the phrases that we use in our ragas to go into those beautiful concertos and the violin suites that they already have, and give a different dimension to the composition that's already being presented. So those things also happen here. And there are a lot of, I do master classes for some of the players, some of the musicians here and all that. So they are very welcoming to the idea of incorporating more than the ragas itself, the concept of the gamakas, which is very fascinating for everyone. So they see that it's the slides are also very natural in our music, so they want to incorporate that, like in their music. So that's a
Play an
beautiful
instrument which is a Western violin, but we
Right.
have adopted it so much and we have changed the whole thing, because from the way you posture it to performing,
Absolutely.
everything is changed. Now, I'm sure everybody is curious to know how we have, how our Indian, especially the South Indian violinists, I think have contributed a lot in the last, if you look at your previous
Absolutely.
generation, I think the
Yes.
contribution of Lalgudi, Jayaramanji, and then MSDs and T.N. Krishnan, sir, and then you've all taken it further, and then you've improved and you've incorporated and made it into the instrument has become our own instrument.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes.
what are your thoughts on that, and how does a Western violinist with whom you have interacted reacts to this?
Yeah, first thing is the tuning part also, like as much as the posturing of it. I mean, nowadays there are a lot of violin players who stand and play our Indian music. But we are used to sitting, and it's much easier for us to use the gamakas when we sit down and play. Um, the most see, we have to see it this way because they tune it as EADG. So D becomes a very important shruti for them. So when you tune in D, because EA, so D and A become Sa and Pa. So it becomes easier to play also. So generally we tune it to D, so it becomes easy for the violin player also to, instead of completely changing the tuning, we can use the idea of tuning in a different way to make it interesting for the Western musician to play the violin. So that way, what I've also done is I've done a lot of compositions which have this concept of Shruti Bhedam and Graha Bhedam and all that. So playing from different notes, for example, Mohanam, we can instead of playing in Sa, play from Re, play from Ga. Not different raga, but Mohanam itself. So just like that. So the Shruti Bhedam concept. So this also helps them to know that our music has quite a bit of other things, just not the gamakas and modes and all that.
No, we have
We have-
harmony built in, but then we don't use it. It's not very pronounced in our music.
Yeah,
So,
that's because we need to vocal music a lot.
yeah,
And because vocal music cannot produce
yeah,
harmony,
correct.
we say our instruments can also not produce. But the tambura itself, we have harmony. Because without harmony, there is, and harmony in a way also means Shruti Shuddham, no? Shruti alignment can also, we can call that harmony. So we just explore. I mean, as musicians, I feel that all music is there to kindle the emotion, like, and also communicate in a divine way. I mean, it's I feel there is every music has some special thing about it, and we, in our own way, from our culture, we bring in that idea of speciality into the world of music, and I feel.
So, if I look at music as from an instrumentalist point of view, the reach is more when you play to an audience who are not familiar with our music. Do you agree on that?
Absolutely. Even musicians, I mean, what has happened, I feel, is that we are forced to believe that it's only the lyrics which is important, but actually I think it's an insult to instrumentalist to
Yeah,
ask
I
them to.
honestly think so too, because I honestly think that, especially Kenji plays the Hindustani music, so we both are from Carnatic music. I feel, limiting ourselves to Carnatic, playing only the kritis, which has only a limited octaves, when we can explore into many more octaves, and not only that, as in many more shrutis and graha bedam and all that, which is
Yeah,
the
main thing is the tone and texture of each instrument is so beautiful by itself.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, because we have to explore that sound rather than just try to imitate the voice. That's what I feel.
I don't know. I feel when you play the kritis, yeah, you follow the vocal tradition and follow the lyrics, and then bring out the beauty of it. But when you are improvising the raga part of it, or the swaram part of it, or I think we need to explore the instrumental,
We don't have.
capability.
The thing is, what I feel about music is, I mean, your own guru, or there's so many people like T.R. Mahalingam or Chitti Babuji.
Yeah,
All
correct.
these people, they have brought in so many instrumental aspects of the music
Yeah, very
into the
true.
composition itself. It doesn't mean that we have to stick to vocal. I mean, you can have sangatis which are instrumental. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
these days,
correct.
the problem is we don't have a Ragum. Ragum Susudha happened about 150 years ago, and there is no Ragum Susudha now. There is no new Ragum Susudha, or there is no new Ninuvina kind of thing, which is a completely instrumental composition, right? I mean, the instrumentalists have also not tried to interpret it the instrumental way. They
No,
have.
right now I see a lot of youngsters. For example, you yourself has been doing a lot of all this.
Yes. We tried all that, yeah. So we tried to do that. I mean, that's why I composed this Raga Pravakam, which is a non-lyrical composition in music, where I want to bring the melodies, the ragas and the thalas in a way that is not explored through the voice. So I want to bring in a Raga Pravagam
So
is a
I have
concept.
a very tricky question here. I do teach a lot in England and I do teach in America. I have a whole lot of students who learn from me. Basically, when you go and teach, do a workshop kind of a thing, I see that they're more conservative than anybody who's practicing music here in India. This has been my experience. It could be, and I've talked to many musicians, and they're. Is it true for you also, or are they open to experimenting? For example, the Shakti wouldn't have happened if you had stayed back in the conservative Carnatic music scene, right? It's very true that you're able to explore, and that's where you are playing so well. And I remember in one of the interviews, Shankar Mahadevan mentioning that you played a Bahudari, and then people were applauding in Switzerland and giving him a standing ovation. That means in an instrument, you are able to carry a Bahudari to that extent. It is possible. It's beyond, taking Carnatic music to beyond boundaries. That's the seminar about. So I'm just trying to get you back to say.
So what I have done here, I have done a completely different curriculum for the school where I have, it's devoid of lyrics. The entire syllabus is devoid of lyrics. And it's not that I don't teach Kriti, I teach all the Kritis. The Kritis, they'll know only the name of the first letter of the Kriti. Otherwise, when they'll play only notes. And I don't give them notation. Very, very few notation I give. I give notation, but not completely. I don't write down everything and all that. So for Sobillu Saptaswara, they'll know Sobillu Saptaswara, but they'll be playing the song, Kriti, Jagan Mohini Ragam, they'll know everything. They'll know Arohanam, Avrohanam, everything, but they'll not know the lyrics at all. I don't teach lyrics at all to my violin kids. I teach the importance of lyrics for singing, but I say lyrics is not important for instrumental music.
So when you teach the vocal students, you give all the importance for the lyrics, and then way.
And I tell them how to use the voice, how to use the text.
But you still answer what the question I asked you. Are they still very conservative when they learn?
They are.
That's one
thing. But
I
put my foot down and say, I know better than you.
Okay. Kenji, what is your experience has been on this teaching? Hindustani music. Are they very conservative in Switzerland also to learn the way it has been taught in India, or they're open to new ideas?
Well, it's the basic technique I use to teach is the way I learned Indian music, and that's very much based on singing, because we had with Kansab we had 2 hours of singing, and then we had 2 hours of instrumental, and he was very insistent upon that. Although he would tell us sometimes, always give us the wordings and the meanings, but then at another point he'd say, "Don't worry about the words. Get the feeling of the raga. That's what you need. But when you want to play your instrument, you want to sing through the instrument." So that's why he would spend so much time singing sargams, taranas, songs, drupads, everything. But he would say, "This will help you sing through your instrument when you use your voice, how you phrase with a voice, to get that sustain that singers can have, because they're dealing with a limited quantity of air, but this is that makes phrasing extremely important. And you can to sustain a sliding note on the sarod is also, it's like being a singer. You have a limited amount of sound that will come out of the instrument before the sound dies. So he said when he's playing, he feels like he's singing through his instrument. So that part of the vocal music and learning that way is very important. And very much tied with that is that I always have been teaching the students here without any notation. and they have to learn everything by listening. This is a very amazing ear training, because many Western musicians, they've never made any music without looking at a page. And
That's true.
and pedagogically, it's
Ah,
crazy how that happened in the West,
yeah.
because you can actually, and I can demonstrate that they can learn much quicker if they're just learning with their ears.
Okay,
They
that
don't-
brings
they don't
me
need
to
that.
ask you one important question, Kenji. You have learned Western music and you have learned Hindustani music. How different has been those two experiences for you?
Well, they've been different, but I, as a Western musician, I was learning. I took lessons. My teacher gave me notations, but I didn't like notation. It was something it didn't feel right for me. I didn't read well. The thing I liked to do most of all was just to sit with my guitar and improvise, and discover melodies. And sometimes my mother would ask the teacher, "How's he doing?" And he'd say, "Well, he's playing really well, but he's not practicing what I give him." And so I ended up most of my youth learning music by listening to records. And I'd listen to the record. I'd try to get it on my instrument, go back. I'd ruin records, dropping the needle on the record as many times as it would take for me to learn that. And so my ear was trained very well just by this process of intuitive learning. So by the time I came and studied with Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, he could just sing something and I would get it, because that's how I learned music. Whereas the other Western musicians were struggling because they never learned music like that. And it's and when you want to learn to improvise, which was a big thing that I taught at the conservatory, because that's another part of music making that they have very little experience with. I told them, if you want to learn to improvise, you have to learn with your ears and be able to keep those phrases inside. Otherwise, what are you going to improvise with? You can't improvise by looking at a piece of paper.
Yes. That's why memorize. Yeah, that's very beautiful. Very beautifully explained, because only from memory, like you memorize, the more you memorize, you are able to bring in those notes, or even better notes when you actually play.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
I always feel that if you internalize the music, then you play it in a different way.
absolutely.
That's the most important thing. And also, I think there's a beauty in memorizing. Somehow you become sharper. I honestly think
That-
that helps
that
you
is
in everything you do in life.
we call that sadhana, right? I mean, that's why we call it sadhana or tapas. Because we
I have
keep
a
like
very
a mantra, we keep on repeating the phrases that we love.
so I have something to, especially very relevant to this conversation we are having. See, though our music has reached out to the West and a lot of Western music has come to India, but we have been influenced by each other, but to a large extent, we have still remained in the same realm as Carnatic music, Hindustani music, Western music, right? Or do you think that, it's been influenced a lot and a new form or a new hybrid kind of music has started, has a movement started? What is your take on this? Probably ask Kenji first to answer this.
Well, we've
can
seen
you make your volume a little louder? You're softer sometimes.
my volume.
Volume. If you can just increase the volume a little bit.
I'll try. Is that any better?
Yeah, so much better.
Okay, great. Yeah, I've seen and I've participated in so many fusion projects since I started learning Indian music, and I think these have been very valuable, not only for me of trying to discover how to mix with an ensemble of Western musicians and mixing melodic-based musics with harmonic-based musics, that there's so much that can be learned in that. But but I don't think it's necessary to that these experiments end up in the birth of a different form. I mean, it's being done all the time, but there is also something wonderful about all of these traditions of Hindustani, Carnatic, Western classical, Western popular. They will go on, I think, and they should. But you're never going to stop musicians from experimenting. It's documented throughout history. The French musicians travel to Germany, they influence them. The Italian musicians go to Spain, they get influenced. The Moors, the Arabs coming up through Spain, they influence the Western music, and that's happened for centuries.
Ganesh?
Yeah. I think we have done, I mean, as Kenji says, that's part of our life, because when you hear a different sound, you want them to want to incorporate that as much as you are playing your sound, to collaborate. I mean, we have done, that we have done quite a bit. You organized a big international festival. We were featured there with
I do.
music.
Yeah, from the
Colors of
time I
India.
started Carnatic music, I am also been collaborating and performing with lot of festivals. Yeah.
So we have done Colors of India, the Navarasa, all these in the fusion format. I feel that in India, what's happened is the fusion music started, I think, first in film music. Film music was the one where the fusion actually started.
True.
Yeah.
So because we are all influenced by movie music, somehow or the other, we are fascinated by the different sounds and all that. So we see that. And also one more thing is, when you have a bass guitar or a drum kit, the volume of the concert itself goes up. So it means that we are entertaining, instead of 250 people, we are immediately entertaining about 3,000 people when the volume goes up, because the volume goes up only for a larger audience. So we are also seeing that this kind of volume and this kind of the oral spectrum that people, when they listen to it, they have a certain kind of energy that it creates a kind of energy in them, which is like, beautiful to see, because they start dancing to it. And in its own way, it's what you call a projection, manifestation of music in a different way. Because it's the oral format of the manifestation. What we see in IMAX as a film, we see that on stage with a high decibel volume, so it's so the manifestation is bigger, larger than life kind of feel. So I think that way fusion music helps people understand the raga thala concept in a very, very different way. For example, we did an album called Seasons, in which I composed one piece in Charukeshi. It was all in seven. That it was seven means that it was not like that, but it was in like it was in seven, but when you hear it, you won't know it is seven. And with the drum kit and everything coming in, it was composed for rain, because this album was about seasons, the Shad Ritu. And for rain, I composed this in Chaurukeshi. So the dimension of that raga, what we hear it in the classical mold, is different when it is heard in that spectrum. When you hear that raga in that spectrum, it sounds very, very different than when you play Adamodi Galadera Maya Mata Lad. So when we play that, the feel is completely different. So we get a different kind of feel playing that kind of Charukeshi. So the raga itself is never bound. It's not in one rasa. We cannot put the raga in one rasa. Where the raga can have its own rasa. Only it can manifest itself. It not only depends on the musician, it depends on so many factors, which brings the beauty of the raga into the fold, to the
So, as a
concept.
Carnatic musician, if I look at what is happening in the crossover music or fusion music, whatever we call it. I find that, if you're trained in Carnatic music, it's been quite easy for us to adapt. How would you think, Kenji, that it is easy for you to adapt with other musicians and perform? Or some of the Western musicians always feel that, the Carnatic musicians adapt very easily to them. This has been my experience. I would like to know what your experience has been.
Well, I've had some very interesting experiences, largely due to the nature of the school where I was teaching here in Basel, because it's a school of early Western music, and so if you go back to the Middle Ages, there's big repertoires that are monophonic, just like Indian music. They're just melodies in modes. And so we found it fascinating, to find those modes that were being sung and played for parts of medieval music, how they matched up with ragas, and so we started to combine them quite naturally, and we found these affinities made for a very harmonious performance. I did a few albums under the title of Meeting Two Worlds of Modal Music. So this part of the early the history of Western music is very convenient for experimenting with that, because
I've also heard that they also tune the same way to the fifth, like how we tune. In the medieval era, they used to tune their violins and all that, and to the fifth. I mean, now they tune it as EADG. Then it was a different tuning. Yeah. So my recent album, I did one single called Yugma. It was an ode to Raga Pravagam, like instrumental music. And this is an Hamsadvani composition, which was orchestrated by my good friend Christophe. And the Northwest Symphonietta, they played a concert with, composition with me, and it was recorded, and it's there in my YouTube channel. I also sent a link. Please listen to that. It's a completely, what I played was Hamsadvani. The Raga Alapana is Hamsadvani, and the orchestra is giving me Shruti for that. And then there's entire composition, which is the orchestra follows me. It's so different from when I played in a concert with Mridangam. The feel of it is so different. So I felt that the ragam can travel, just not us. The raga also travels with the music that it collaborates. The way it is played along with, see, for example, the same Hamsadvani composition, if you play on the Veena, it's actually going to sound very, very different, because when you play on an instrument, violin, like if I play like that, it has got a violent sound. But when you play on the Veena, it is going to be totally different. It'll be much more mystery. There'll be more mystical than on the violin. I mean, for other people, it will sound the other way. But for me, when I hear that Veena sound with that same track, it's going to be different. So I think we have to also think about creating these instrumental compositions so that we can ask the music to say what it wants to say.
So if you do that, it will have less boundaries. So it will reach out to everywhere, because listening to
I think even in our own country, it will reach more people, I think.
Yeah, even in our own country. And also, I honestly think that learning an instrument and mastering it is very, very, it's a very complex process than saying it difficult. I would say it's a complex process, because to find your own sort of standing in the field, you need to develop your own techniques. At some point, you need to add on to whatever you have learned. So all this is a very complex process we go through. And then I think, music should be appreciated better, and instrumental music, definitely. And it'll have more reach if we do this.
Absolutely.
I'm sure
Absolutely.
you
I
all
mean,
of you.
that is why, that is why, our gods didn't sing. They always played the instrument.
That's a good one, though. I'd never thought of it, though.
You know who sang? Who sang? All the devotees. They sang in praise of the gods.
That's a very good one. I see a lot of interest in Europe, especially about Carnatic music and our complex rhythm patterns. And then now, after 20 years of interacting with a whole lot of groups, I see they're also interested in the melody part of it. And they're able to pick up a lot of stuff. And I do a lot of master classes with them, and they do come to Bangalore, and I keep going there to do master classes. I find that their interest in, especially our gamakas, has increased a lot. What would you think of this, Kenji?
I think there's a number of aspects of Indian music that Westerners find really fascinating. And I mentioned one of them was the aspect of improvisation, because in Western music, unless you're playing jazz or to some extent rock and roll,
was memorizing, the whole,
and memorizing, but concretely, how you learn to improvise. What are the steps? Yeah. Because many classical musicians grow up and they've never improvised a note in their lives, and they can't play anything without the paper there. And so when they come to the class first, they bring their pads of paper with them, and they're ready to write. And I say, put that away. You don't need that here. I'm setting you free. And it's such a revelation for them that you can make music and create music on the spot just by learning a set of rules. The ragas are so, in some ways, so easy to follow because there's a basic set of rules you follow, and then you can walk with it. Not to say that, of course, to be a virtuoso takes many, many years, but the basic rules that show us the path are they can be learned. They can be learned even as a beginner to do that. And these Western musicians, some of them they're already very high level virtuosos on their instruments. So it's something it gives them a sense of freedom that they've never had before. But just that aspect is a huge thing.
But the jazz
there are also, I've seen there's a lot of Western musicians who have learned the melody part also, and they are quite they do a kind of fusion of jazz. Here there are lots of musicians who do that. I mean,
this is exactly what I wanted to know from you. Can you explain on that?
Yeah, because we have a lot of saxophone players, a lot of piano players who have learned the melody and rhythm, and they're creating their own music that way, so the amalgamation of jazz and Indian music is happening quite a lot, especially in California. It's happening quite a lot because of Ustadji's that school that has created such a huge wave of these the Indo-fusion kind of element. I mean, there have been so many groups, and Shakti had such a great influence on people's minds, and it's only through that the people, I mean, all over the globe, the listeners came to know of Indian music. And Ravi Shankar ji, Pandit ji has done is amazing stuff also, because these things create foundation for people like us to go and perform, and understand, for them to, for the people to know a little bit about Indian music. And that's the great aspect that we see from the shoulders of our ancestors sit down there.
And before Indian music became so popular, and with the wave that was kind of sparked by the Beatles and Pandit Ravi Shankar playing together, and largely at the vanguard of the interest from the West in by musicians into Indian music was the jazz players. John Coltrane. before anyone was really talking about it so much, he was looking at Indian music, and they were getting inspired, not just jazz players, but also the classical composers. They were desperate for new ideas, and they were getting them partially from India. So it's, something
also
to
the
notice.
technology has changed, right? Like if you go back and look at centuries ago, whoever came to India, like from the Persians, if you take it, they brought instruments which were used by the North Indians. The South Indians never got influenced by them because there was no communication happening at those times. And if you take some more years and then see that, the violin was adopted in Carnatic music much more than Hindustani, though they have adopted, but it's much more vibrant and living in South Indian music. So right now, the technology, I think, has played a huge role because we can get to hear anything, and I can sit and record here, and you can record at your place, and then we can still do a album of a fusion without meeting each other. So the technology, I think, has played a great role in globalizing Indian music. I would think it has helped us a lot.
Absolutely. Technology has helped everyone, because now master classes happening over Skype or Google Meet or Zoom. Zoom classes are so very popular now all over the world. So we are adapting. Gurus are also adapting to teaching online. I mean, it's quite tough. It will never replace the in-person classes and all that. But even it helps quite a lot. I mean, if they don't, children don't have to miss classes. They can actually, even if they are not able to come in person, they can do classes online. I mean, so many advantages of technology. In music also, I mean, technology has helped the quality of music to be how it is heard, how it sounds, everything. So the players have become more fine also because of that.
No, if you look at my guru's generation and then a little earlier than him, not many heard of Carnatic music. Thanks to Ravi Shankar ji and dear guru, the lot of Westerners knew Hindustani music. I remember traveling in 80s, taking the Veena to America, and they would so many people would ask me in the airport, is it something like very close to sitar? They would say. They never knew that there was a Veena existing. See, all this exposure came to South, at least for the South Indian music, much later. Would you agree on that, Ganesh?
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think in Carnatic music, the main part is that we are very bad at marketing.
We used to be, not anymore, I suppose.
But you're right. So I think it's the exposure also. I mean, we need to expose ourselves, and also it's also skill level, how we train ourselves and also train our students. And I mean, it's all about that. I think that's the way to go. I mean, always explore and keep exploring, keep learning. Every day we learn. Every day when I teach, I also learn a new aspect of music, because new facet of music just blossoms in front of us. Because we when we would say some things, some of the things, and then when there is a doubt, then we try to clear that doubt. That itself is a learning, because we wouldn't have thought about that angle at all. So it's every day is a learning process that way.
Sometimes I agree completely. Sometimes we're trying to teach, and we can't believe how many times can that student not learn this line. Like how are they so bad, or am I doing something wrong in my teaching?
That's true.
No,
but I think the whole thing.
No doubt about it.
The whole thing with education and passing on the music to next generations, something always was troubling to me, because I mean, I studied with my teacher for 37 years and it was still not enough. And I thought, it's getting so difficult to maintain a long apprenticeship between a guru and student in this modern age. Time is moving so quickly. And the technology has been a tremendous help with this whole Zoom development, that you because you can continue to transfer that knowledge and in an oral tradition where you give that lesson. The student can repeat that lesson at home, and it's still not written down. It's still using their ears for learning. It's a wonderful thing. It never will replace those sessions where you're face to face. A Guru Mukti Vidya. This from the guru's mouth to the disciple. But these are tremendous aids, because we don't want, or is it not possible to notate everything that you learned in Indian music and then give them a piece of paper. It's got to be transferred by this oral means, and the technology is just put it in our lap now. That's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. That's true. So when we talk about, I just thought about this. I mean, when we talk about ideas being translated from India to all over the world, the one thing that we can be proud of is the Mora. Every percussion player in the world knows this. I mean, everybody who knows music or who's a listener, they know. Everyone knows that Mora.
Everyone knows, and now
Huge.
Konekol has become the language of the music.
World.
My God, Konekol. I remember Mr. Chandramodi, who was playing with me in the fusion band we had in Bangalore. Whenever he sang Konekol, he used to have a great applause. And those days, nobody was appreciating Konekol. But now I see in Europe, everywhere, everybody knows some part of it. Even a guitarist, a pianist, they know, and they also start singing a little bit of Konekol. That is how popular the Konekol is right now.
Yes, that's absolutely true. So it's not about Konekol, that the Mohara itself has become a signature kind of,
Yeah, correct.
The Indian and the melting pot, what we call as the melting pot of cultures. And that is really the bridge. That part is more like the melting pot or the bridge between every culture, because every music knows this. Everyone know that. I mean, they incorporate that into their like percussion solos or in somewhere. And then that's how everything is brought into a conclusion. Like, as you know, that we do end our Taniyavartanam with that. So that's fantastic, actually.
So somebody has asked you a question to talk about Raga Pravaham, which you have collaborated with your brother Kumaresh, and how's the experience has been to do that?
Wow, super. In the beginning, when I composed this Raga Pravaham, and Kumaresh wanted to, he was the one who said, like, this is what we should play in concerts, just not the kritis alone. We should play these compositions, because Raga Pravaham is completely instrumental, non-lyrical compositions, which was created. So he was the first one to say that I would be, Aga, how can we play this in a concert? I was kind of, like scared actually to play that, but it was because of Kumaresh that it came out actually. So then we started playing it, and that became our signature style also. Then people started enjoying it. And when we first played that and the people appreciated it, that's when I understood the importance of how the minds of audience is also changing, and how the audience taste is also changing. It's so different from one generation to the other. And it's always given us that little bit of edge to our playing, Raga Pravaham, because it gives us that freedom where we don't have to think about that you have to bow like this, you have to do that, do this. I mean, like, because the lyric says that we have to do this, we don't have to do this. We can do this because we want to do this, or this is what it is. I mean, here I need to say something with my bow or with my finger or with my phrases. I do that according to my own free will, kind of thing, like. So that is what Raga Pravaham has given, and it has also given birth to, and where we play different notes at the Samvadi notes, which is already present in our music, which is present. Like, for example, let's take Janaranjani. We can do that. Say, "Da, da, 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 da." If we play together, that's what harmony is. That's what we call it, harmony. So we have this Vadi Samvadi phrases in every raga, I know. I mean, for one of the constructs of the raga, one of the features of the construct is that we should have Vadi Samvadi phrases in every raga. Then only the raga itself is complete. So when we play that together, it becomes a different aspect of Carnatic music coming out. So we played now a lot of vocalists are singing. I mean, I was so stunned to see that this aspect is being followed by a lot of singers, and a lot of instrumentalists are also doing it now. I mean, this Raga Pravagam has really opened a new door for everyone. With that we can do many things instrumentally, so that the beauty of music and beauty of what a musician thinks also comes out, because that's what improvisation is all about. I mean, sometimes I feel somebody's told me this, somebody asked me what a composition is. So I remembered one of my friends telling me, all your best lines are your compositions. So we have to bring out our best lines.
There's one more question which I think we have already answered by Ramesh Krishnamurthy. So asking us while the technology is helping us, auto tuning would be possible in the live concerts.
That's already happening. It's already
in
happening.
live concerts, it's difficult.
Not
because,
in Carnatic music concerts,
not
but in film music concerts already happening. There a lot of people use
the technology is being used very much right now for everything, but then still you being who you are as a musician matters a lot. To me, I would think that it is very important who you are and how you produce music, what you think and what your emotions are. I think that's a major part apart from all the technology. I think panelists will agree with that. Kenji, you have a say on this?
Well, I think I may have missed something about this part of the technology. It was you were saying auto tuning or something like that.
Yeah, auto tuning is it going to happen in the live concert? Is one of the questions.
Mean that the notes you're playing would be automatically tuned?
That is not possible in a live concert at all. Right? That's the answer.
No, it is happening. It is already happening. Maybe in our classical music concerts we don't have it.
We are talking
already in those big shows that they have.
Big shows, yes.
They use auto tuning for their voices.
Not for Carnatic music, unless you you do it as a set composition and not improvise a lot on the spot, right?
We can actually mime.
Oh yeah. That's what happens in a lot of film concerts,
but then the audience would need auto listening, and then everybody could just go home.
So there's one more question from an anonymous person who is asking: is interpretation different from improvisation? Would Kenji take this question?
Interpretation versus improvisation.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
all of us will answer this question. It's a very interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from the point of view from Western classical music, where you have a composition that's fixed, but how the musician will interpret it, like the gestures on the notes, some of the subtleties that aren't notated, and how you can tell the difference between, there might be two violinists playing this exact same piece, the exact same notes, but they sound different because one of them interprets it in a different way. This is if you want to kind of identify that as a form of improvisation, you can, but usually when that would be interpreted and those, as you said, when the best things get fixed, that becomes the composition. So there's a tendency for Western musicians in the classical field, when they come up with an interpretation that they really believe in, they'll stick to that, and that becomes part of the composition. Improvisation I associate more with the actual changing of notes, which the great composers of the past would definitely not like. Beethoven would not be happy about us changing the notes. That's okay. You put a little gesture here or there, but there are some things that are sacred. So
don't you agree that both are also very interconnected? An interpretation and an improvisation. It's very interconnected, right?
Well, to some extent, yes.
Yeah.
It depends on the form of music also.
Yeah, for us, interpretation is generally done in the composition, and
Yeah.
the improvisation anyway happens.
So we have
so
a definite place for interpretation and a definite place for, even if you are not a great musician or a performing artist regularly, you still have this interpretation and improvisation in a sort of boxed in the proper way.
Yeah.
Because in Hindustani music, you are not so composition oriented as we are, right?
Oh no, we learned so many compositions.
Yeah, but
the problem is that we forget things very quickly. So when we're performing, we have to come up with something new, But no, I can show you books and books, of compositions that I've learned from Kansab. He was a prolific composer.
That's interesting to know.
Oh yeah, yeah. But then each time he would, give that composition, he would change it. And we'd say, but Kansab, last time you did it like this. And he'd say, yeah, okay. What are you are you trying to put the bird in the cage? Let me sing.
See, for us,
let me fly.
The concert is at least there are, the concert format which most of us follow here has definite compositions. And you can recognize these compositions, whether I play it or Ganesh plays or someone else plays it. If you play the composition, it is recognizable. So to that extent, I think Hindustani is very Gharana oriented, right?
Yes, there's a whole collection of these compositions from the Maihar Gharana, where when you hear that fast gut in Pilu, it's like, of course, that's Baba Alauddin Kansab and Ali Akbar Kansab, but then Kansab would change it also. He would subject it to his inspirations of the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
So these are the questions we have. I think we have answered almost all the questions. As a closing remark, is there something we would like to share? Before we close this, Ganesh, I want to ask, how was your experience to do this Shakti album, which got you the Grammy?
Oh, it was an experience by itself because it was.
No, I want you to talk about how enriching the experience was.
Yeah,
how,
I'm saying how it happened. So it was during the pandemic. Actually, there was one call from John G. He wanted us to get together, Zoom call like this. We just sat in different parts of the continents, and everybody was there. And he said, "This 50. Let's do a 50-year," because John G. and Zakir Bhai, both of them had already spoken about it, and they thought that they should do an album for the 50 years of Shakti. So so he came online and said he wants to do it. And so we were very, very happy because we were not doing anything at that point. No concert, no touring, sitting at home and, eating good food, nothing, no practice, no rehearsal. So this was fantastic that he said this because so everybody had different ideas. We all talked about it. We shared our compositions and we line by line it was made, like every one of us. It was there was a Dropbox that we had to send our whatever we played, and there was one composition which we learned and then played million times, learned it, and then we submitted it. Then everybody will hear, and they had their own comments for everything, and that's how each track or each phrase or each line was, I mean, put together like that. I mean, there was for mixing and all, it was very tough because John G, when he sat, he had to have, he has so much of stuff. So yeah, it all came together. I mean, this is like a history now,
Yeah.
big part of my history.
Mm.
And it was so good. I mean,
So since
I was
I'm
so
talking
nervous
to
also
you,
because I was in a way, but giving it is a huge responsibility, I felt. And to get a nod, I mean, like, I mean, it's okay. I mean, I felt it was good. Zakir Bhai felt it was good. Everybody felt it was good. And it's like get when you're not in one room, you don't know what it actually feels like. I mean,
yeah,
because we have to get a response at a later point of time, not
yeah,
at that point of time, because we're used to that as performers to get a nod or sabash or ballet at that point, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So to do that and then send it and wait for the response was like, what is going to happen? It was new. It was
New
completely new.
experience. You
New
always
experience.
learn something new at every, every time you do something new. Especially pandemic taught us a lot of things. I feel we all became better musicians through those 3 year, 2.5 years of difficult times. Mm.
One thing it taught us was the patience.
Yeah, correct. Very. And also, I was not willing to teach online so much before the pandemic. I would teach only the American students or students who lived in England or Singapore, but not the local students. But then, pandemic has changed everything, and we have evolved into different teaching techniques. I would think,
Yeah.
using a thala meter, because there is always a lag, especially when you are teaching the
Okay.
swara prastaram and all that. It's very difficult. So
Very.
I have evolved to, we both of us use the same thala meter, and then she records and sends it to me, and then I'm able to correct it. I feel all these are great improvisation to teach online. What would you
Abs-
think? Mm.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I started teaching before that itself, so I
Mm.
was used to it. That way it was
I
much
was
more.
teaching a lot of American students, but I was not willing to teach my local students. I would say, come home. But they also never thought that they would not come. No, they would always prefer to come home and come to my institution and learn. But then the pandemic, they all wanted to continue because everybody was bored. They had nothing to do. They wanted
Yeah.
something to keep them going
Yes.
during
Yes.
that time. Mm.
Yes. So I want to. Can I take my leave? I mean, I just have
Before
something.
you leave, yeah, well, if you, so I have something to say. See, this whole thing was about how music has reached out to beyond borders, beyond the Bharat borders. That was
Yes.
the whole idea which Vijay and Aparna were thinking that we should talk about. And then, how do you think? Where do you think the music, especially Carnatic music, is on this particular topic, especially
Yeah.
considering that
Uh,
so many of them are learning from you, and so you go all over the world teaching. What do you think that you know
we are we
what
are
is the
in our own
change
way
which has come?
creating. I think by playing this music, we are making aware that this kind of culture exists. So, why I'm saying culture is that the Indian system is always about circles. Like we come back, like sa to sa, aroganam, avaroganam. So everything is connected. We connect. So there is some cultural relevance also to what we are doing. So I think we are bringing every time we play some song or some kriti or some raga, some tala. I think we are bringing a part of our culture into the mainstream. I think I mean that way we are trying to globalize our music and more than there's also a flight of Indian musicians from Chennai or Bangalore to every part of the world. I mean, that's itself is very good because we are training. I mean, I see that there are so many young musicians here who know much, um, who get the very great advantage of learning from big masters more than in India. It's become like that in US, especially in the United
No,
States.
there is a huge interest for Carnatic music in Europe. I see that
Yeah.
it has increased so much. 4 folds, 5 folds in the past 25, 30 years. I've been traveling around. I see this time when I went back, I had a German percussionist playing mridangam with me professionally.
Mhm.
So that's the kind of interest I see, and I see that there's a great future for our music. And Kenji, your thoughts on this, please?
Yeah, well, it has definitely two sides to it, and one of them is very positive, and how the music has spread. But if there was another side, I felt bad in a way, because Ali Akbar Khan Sahab spent more than 50 years teaching in the West, and during that time there were many students in India who, I mean, they would have given up an arm to study with this man, and yet he was in the West teaching, and he was doing a wonderful mission, really. But it was tough for all those people in India who wanted to study with him, and at one point, almost realizing it after all this time and so many thousands of compositions that we had learned from him, he said, you'll see, there will come a time when if an Indian wants to learn these compositions from our Gharana, they'll have to learn it from an American.
That's true, yeah.
Because we've recorded everything, we've notated everything, we've recorded everything, and we've learned it. But even our generation that had learned with him, like for as long as I did, like 40 years, that generation will also be gone, and it will be difficult to keep those things alive. So that's the challenge when these displacements, somebody wins, and maybe somebody loses.
Yeah.
I don't like to leave things on a sour note, but it's just to be aware that this happens. If we really depend on that individual to learn from, then where that person it becomes critical.
Yeah, very true, very true. Vijay?
I think Aparna had a question.
If I can just ask one last question to all three of you. Soft power, that is India's ability to attract non-Indians to our culture, has been called soft power, but is also highly dependent on economics. So when we talk about the economics of music over time, would you say that we've been able to, has the artist been able to monetize Indian music? How many labels are we selling? Are we top of the charts? Are we, when you say like lot of interest in Carnatic or Hindustani music, how do we quantify this, and where do we actually stand in terms of economic stake in music? Ganesh ji is laughing, so I think.
You know what I would say, instead of concentrating on non-Indians, we have to concentrate on Indians. And because India is a big power, and we have to take the music that we have to each and every kid. Let's not think about anyone else. The older people have their own things, but we have to get it to the kids and tell them about Indian music, Indian culture, Indian. Let's talk about Indian music. So everyone should know what a veena is, what a tambura is. The people don't know the difference between tambura and veena. I mean, they don't know what a violin is. They don't know what mridangam is. I mean, these are instruments which are thousands of years old. I mean, veena, even Saraswati played the veena. So think about the antiquity of veena. So I think the most important aspect is that, yes, there are musicians, people like us, all of us, who travel outside and spread music in our own way. What we can, we do. But it's so important to get that habit of understanding our music with the kids, with the education, and also create audiences, because I think everybody has become a critic now rather than audience. So we have to create a homegrown audience, which is so important. And that's what I feel. I mean, about soft power. That soft power, I think we can use it in India itself, because so much that we can do in India. We should definitely do outside. Yes, our responsibility. But
Yeah, because otherwise, what Kenji is saying will happen.
No, you know what? I would think that we need to concentrate, especially you people are doing a lot of work on this. See, for years, number of years, I've attended many seminars, many symposiums, and every time we have said it's very important for our kids when they're young enough to understand, maybe in the primary school level, no, not before they become 10, they need to understand that there's something called Indian music, which is very valuable for them. See, they need to understand that, because I see in West, they all go to school and they all either learn vocal music or instruments or something or other. So they are aware of what is what was there as their tradition in every European country, and in everywhere in America also, in schools it's very important they learn music. But in India, we have given up. When we were young, we were learning music was compulsory, but not anymore. See, we need to introduce that. About monetizing, it's like any other field. Either you teach and you make your money through that, or you perform and you do it. But it's all like every doctor doesn't earn the same money, every engineer does not earn the same money. Same way with musicians. It depends on how creative you are and how good you are and how good PR you are at the end of the day. Let's accept it. It's very important that you have the right PR machinery working for you. So that will give you I think that's a very different aspect. Here we should concentrate more on getting more audiences and more people to be aware of our classical music. For in India, unfortunately, the music is only film music, Bollywood music. It's not that it has grown out of our Hindustani and Carnatic music. I think youngsters need to be aware of this.
I think Ganesh ji wants to leave, so we will let him leave and we can continue for a few more minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ji.
Yes,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
namaskaram.
So nice meeting you, Kenji. Bye bye.
Oh, Ganesh, so much. Yeah. Pleasure. Pleasure.
Namaskar.
Take care.
Namaste. Vijay ji, namaste. Aparna ji, namaste.
Thank you.
Bye.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Yes, we can continue for a few more minutes.
So, Sumaji, could you tell us about how the museum had played a role in drawing people to Indian music, non-Indians?
So when we conceptualized the museum project in say 2009, and when we actually opened the museum in 2017, actually we opened it in late 18, July 18. So our goal was to make the youngsters come to the museum, and if they do a 2 hours tour in the museum, they will go out of the museum knowing that there is so much of Indian music there in India. It's not only about Carnatic or Hindustani, it's about regional music, it's about our folk music, it's about tribal music, it's about our Bollywood music, and even the contemporary music scene. So in fact, our museum starts with a contemporary music gallery. We wanted them to go out of the museum appreciating something about music. Each one will take out, I've done many tours in the museum, and I've seen everybody is interested in the genre they are interested in. Some of them are interested in only Hindustani music, some of them are only interested in Carnatic music, and some of them only contemporary. So there are people like that, and at the end of the day, when they tour the museum, I've seen that they've gone out appreciating Indian music. That's what we plan to do, and we have to a large extent succeeded. In oral art, which is, you appreciate music only by hearing, that we have made it into a visual art where you can see, enjoy, and listen. I think we have done, and from the response we have got in the last 5 years of music being around, we are very proud of what we have done. We are very happy that people are appreciating, and we needed this for Indian music badly. And the schools are bringing children, they're appreciating, because we take them on a guided tour. So it's been very satisfying experience for all of us.
Thank you. Akka, would you like to?
Yeah. Ken, I just have a question for you. I mean, from what I know, Basel is a really small town in Switzerland. And if you say that it's become so popular there, it must be actually having quite an impact on the culture in Basel. What do you say about that? Indian music. You're muted. So you're muted.
There we go. It has been very fortunate, you know, and part of the reason, of course, is that I've been here for the last 45 years teaching and promoting and inviting artists to play. It was kind of an accident that I came to Basel. But this was where the Conservatory of Music was that I wanted to study at, and so I just stayed here. So for a very small city, you know, there's bigger cities in Switzerland. Zurich is much bigger than Basel, but they don't have nearly as much activities in Indian music going on, both in education and in the performance activities. So I think it was a key for me that the Conservatory of Music in Basel accepted my request to teach Indian music at the conservatory to those students, because that provided a base, a knowledge base that then, you know, educated listeners and brought the appreciation and quality of listening that the people in Basel have. I think it's very important. So it's not really dependent on the size of the city necessarily. It's dependent on the activities that are going on. And we've been fortunate here, and that, you know, I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have opened a school by myself or had access to that number of gifted students without the help of the Music Conservatory of Basel. And in general, the culture in Switzerland that values music and music education. This has to be said also. You don't find it to that extent in France or in Germany or in Italy, you know, and they are Switzerland is an affluent country. They have the money to spend on culture, not just music, but art and you know, and theater. And so this is one of the beneficial consequences of a place like this.
So in the 45 years that you have run the school, are there any notable Indian, non-Indian musicians playing Indian music who are, you know, performing today, other than, of course, you?
Well, yes. I mean, I would say many gifted students who have come and gone and integrated this music into their lives. But the two of my best students, I think the success story there is that they're both excellent performers, and when I had to retire from the Music Academy in Basel because I have these age requirements there, these two women could take over my job teaching, so they are continuing it, and that continuity is one of the most important things that we need. You know, and so I'm really grateful, and they're teaching the courses that I used to teach, and I'm still teaching them also. They still realize that they need to learn more. And the other very gratifying thing is these some of these young Indian students who have come with the influx of Indian population, partly at Novartis and the other chemical industries in Basel, is just a lot more Indians, and some of them are consciously wanting to. They think, okay, we're here we are in Switzerland. We might be here many years, but we want to give our children some education in Indian art, and so they'll have some cultural identity, and so they've been sending these kids, you know, to my students to work with them, and there's a couple of them who are just they're fantastic, and you know, one is still only 9 years old, and he just played a few weeks ago and blew everybody away. You know, it was, and then there's another 20-year-old who is just in you know on a very good path to become a professional if he decides to, but that's his decision. The point is that the music is being passed on, and it's passed on to not only Europeans but also Indians. That's very gratifying.
This has been wonderful. I think I'll let Aparna wind up and, give us a vote of thanks.
Thank you so much. Firstly, Dr. Suma Sudhindra ji, for helping tie it all so well together like a sutradhar. Thank you, Ken, for once again making time and giving us your insights and the way you've learned your music and also propagating it in Switzerland and the rest of the world. And thank you to Ganesh ji, who's had to leave early. It's a wonderful session, and all of us are so deeply in love with this music. I think it just blooms in all of us and takes hold of our hearts. So I hope we will have many more conversations like this and trace new pathways in the future and how we can collaborate together in documenting the history of our music, how it changes, how it evolves, how it influences. And thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Let's end with Sarve Bhavantu. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamasorma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. And with all your permission, we'll end the session today. And once again, thank you so much. Namaskar.
Pleasure.